Hey you, welcome to Sacrilegious Discourse.
I'm husband.
I'm wife.
And together we're reading the Bible.
Starting with Genesis and eventually ending with Revelations, we're working through every book and offering our atheist 2 cents.
Or shekels.
Yeah, those. We're asking questions and pointing out all the nonsense.
We aren't academics or scholars.
Nope. In fact, when it comes to religion, we really don't know anything at all.
What we've learned so far is that God's a dick.
Oh, he really is, isn't he? If you're interested in how we reached this startling conclusion, maybe start from episode 1.
Otherwise, jump in anywhere. It's all good.
Yep.
Hey wife, we just got a new sponsor. It's Anchor. They must think we're doing something right because they picked us back up.
That's amazing. Want to hear something even more amazing?
Yeah?
I actually know what they are.
You are full of shit. I'm calling your bluff. Tell me about Anchor.
Okay, so Anchor by Spotify is the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place.
I'm actually surprised you knew that, but did you also know that Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer?
Yes, because I see you do that on your phone all the time and it looks pretty simple.
It really is, and when hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
But I use CastBox.
Yeah, darling, I know you like CastBox. It gets distributed there too, and lots of other platforms as well.
And how much are we paying for this awesome service?
Absolutely nothing.
Coolio! So then we should tell people to download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started?
Yep, do it now.
Husband!
Wife!
It's a Q&A!
It sure is.
Do you have some cues?
Well, I think we had some cues, but...
We did.
I didn't recall what they were.
That's okay. I have some Q's and I have their A's.
Okay.
So we're going to go over a little bit about the book of Joshua and some false god stuff and yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go jump into this and do this.
All right.
All right.
Okay, so the book of Judges, right?
Yes, the book of Judges.
So, I was kind of right in that as far as the time period goes, it does overlap the book of Joshua.
Okay.
So,
it was a little confusing to me because,
right.
it seemed very intrusive into that time frame.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what? This doesn't work.
No, I totally get it. It basically picks up towards the end of Joshua's life.
Okay.
And then continues on from there. And when they talk about Joshua or when they say his name,
yeah,
they're more referring to that time period. It's kind of like a remember when.
Okay.
Rather than we're going back in history and this happened, haha.
Right.
So it's kind of like keep up. You know what I mean?
Got it, yeah.
And so part of the reason that they do that is because they're kind of going back and forth. Like, I think when we were off recording off the mic, you said something about how he was almost like the first judge.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, because after that there was, I think, Othniel, and then they started the next judge was after that. So,
right.
He kind of started the whole... I mean, you could consider him maybe the first judge or something.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a really astute observation, honestly, because... like I said, the book of Judges does pick up towards the end of his life. And during the days of Joshua, Israel did not fully possess the land, the promised land.
Which was a little bit misleading in the reading of it. But
exactly.
Hey, whatever.
Exactly. But during that time period, although they compromised a lot or hadn't conquered all the land and kind of either lived in battle with the people or lived in peace with the people,
right?
They weren't worshiping the idols of the Canaanites, or at least not overtly.
Right.
They may have been, but it was more closeted because while Joshua was living, this was still the generation, like the last generation of those who knew the deal as far as like what was what with God.
It's almost the way it makes it sound, because it's generational. It seems like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It almost seems like they need someone to hold them to this, or else, like they need an or else, and that person needs to be a strong figure for them to actually fall in line with the teachings, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise, they devolve back into their old ways.
Which makes total sense if you think about it, because, we don't follow the same rules and belief patterns and behaviors as our parents.
Right, and I suppose really Christianity would be a whole different ballgame if people were like, follow it or don't follow it, whatever.
Exactly.
I don't give a fuck.
Exactly. So, it's not really surprising that each generation kind of does its own thing, and that they fall in and out of pleasure with God.
Right.
So after the death of Joshua, that's when they really started worshiping the other Canaanite gods, like their idol worshiping and that kind of thing. So not the gods so much as the idols. One of those was, you'll recall, Baal.
Yeah,
and
he was
also
the big bad Baal.
Yeah. Well, there's Baal is like the capital G god,
right?
And then Baal without the little accent, that would be like your lowercase, referring to many gods.
Got it.
Like
the other sub-gods maybe, or something like that, or whatever.
Well, no, it's like basically when you're saying like the main one, like there is God, there is Baal.
Right.
But then when you're like, actually, there could be many gods, we don't know. There could be many Baals.
Sure.
So that's the differentiation between the two.
Right.
But the reason that they particularly liked this Baal guy was because he was the god of weather and nature, and would thus ensure agricultural success.
Okay.
And
that makes sense. They were, tending farms and stuff like that. So, they wanted to make sure that stuff worked well for them.
They were an agricultural community of people. So, yeah. Getting more to the bottom line, this relates to they were pursuing personal wealth.
Right.
So
obviously, I think that's really what it all boils down to is, and they bring up wealth a lot in the Old Testament, like so far, and they say if you follow God that you're going to gain personal wealth and attain things and what have you. So that makes sense.
So another one that they worshipped was Ashteroth, and she was one of our questions.
That's right. I forgot. We did mention that. It seemed like I had heard something about that one at some point before, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. She was the goddess of love, sex, and fertility.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it totally wouldn't surprise me. And I would like to do, like, a whole thing just on her maybe sometime.
Right.
Just maybe as, like, an extra episode somewhere.
Well, it's just interesting to me that there was all these gods in this time period because, everybody always hears about, like, your... Greek gods and Roman gods and all that kind of stuff, and then the Egyptian gods, and of course, Christianity and all these other
pantheon of pagan gods,
Hinduism and whatever. Like, there's all these other gods out there, but you never hear about these gods other than like right now when we're learning that about them in the Bible. And that's not to say that people haven't done studies on them, but like they're not part of that like.
The mainstream.
Right, yeah. So, it's kind of cool to find out, and here's some more gods. So,
right. The ones that predate the Greek and Roman, and the ones that the Greek and Roman would have come from.
Right.
So, Ashtaroth, like I said, she was the goddess of love, sex, and fertility. So insofar as what the people would be getting out of that would be physical pleasure.
Right.
So they were greedy and wanted sex all the time.
Honestly, that sounds a lot better than the fucking god they picked in the end. So.
I don't know about that. I'm glad you said that because a lot of times those practices incorporated child sacrifice.
Why do they always gotta incorporate child sacrifice? That's bullshit.
So maybe not.
I just don't. What the fuck?
Maybe not. So we had another question about what exactly were quote unquote judges.
Yeah.
And we were like, they don't sound very judgy. They sound like leaders.
Right.
Well, we interpreted that correctly. They were basically various rulers. They were generally military leaders and fighters and heroic leaders, more so than they were preachers of righteousness.
Well,
or
that
anything
also
like that.
The way they phrased it, and again, this could be a mistranslation, but like the way they phrased it is very misconstruing. Like it's
misleading.
Misleading.
The word that they picked.
Because they actually do have judges that they talked about back in Moses' time that they brought to like judge people and stuff like that. So like
when Moses was told to delegate by his father-in-law.
Yeah, so it was weird that they would use the same word. Now again, mistranslations abound, so who knows? But it is still weird to me that they use those same words.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
At least in what we're reading. So.
I totally agree, and that made me really happy that we guessed correctly what they meant.
I didn't think they didn't leave much room for interpretation. Like they're like, yep, they're keeping them in line, and they're going to war and winning stuff, and yada yada yada.
Well, it makes you wonder. Since these are what these people are doing and we're getting to know them by name, it makes me wonder if we actually misunderstood the meaning of the word judge earlier on.
That could be.
When he was
it didn't feel that way,
but when he was delegating, Moses, that is, was delegating responsibilities
it could
to
have
these
been
judges,
leaders of those clans or whatever,
or
tribes or whatever,
military leaders, fighters, stuff like that, to make decisions. Whereas I was thinking like a guy that sits in a robe with a wig on his head.
No, that almost actually makes more sense. But I mean, without delving into that, I don't know if that's the case. But that would almost make more sense if they tied it in that way.
Yeah. So it's just kind of funny to me that like we assumed one thing earlier on, and then when they described these new guys, we're like, oh.
Yeah.
So, the Book of Judges as a whole, we went over this a little bit in our intro to the Book of Judges. It recounts the history of the children of Israel, which is what we call the Israelites.
Sure.
From the time they settled in the land of Canaan after Joshua's death through to the birth of Samuel.
Okay.
Who the fuck is Samuel? We
don't
know yet.
Right.
There's a book about him.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There might even be 2.
There's books about all kinds of things.
No, I mean in the Bible.
No, I know. I got you. That's what I meant. In the Bible, there's books about all kinds of things and people.
So we're going to learn about him, but that's what Judges covers.
Got it.
So you know how Joshua was Moses' assistant?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't realize this, or I should have realized it because it makes sense in retrospect. It's obvious. Joshua did not appoint somebody to take his place after him to guide the nation.
They didn't cover that. So that's interesting. Like, was there just nobody willing or ready to do it?
Or worthy? I don't know.
Or did he think he didn't need to train somebody? Did the person he trained die off before they got to that point?
I mean, who knows? Like, I do know, remember towards the end of his life, he was, like, really displeased with the people because he was like, you guys are starting to worship and you're not winning and you're taking these people as slaves.
He was a little bit disenfranchised from them.
Disenchanted.
Yeah, that's right.
Unimpressed.
Sorry.
Unimpressed, at the very least. Yes. He was like, I don't... And remember, he was like, okay, you're going to need to give up all of your sins and, do this and do that.
Which implied that there was things going wrong in his eyes.
Exactly. And they were like, we promised to serve God. And then he was like, you can't serve him.
Right.
And we took it wrong at first until we looked into it more and realized that he meant, unless you do these other things, you are not able to correctly serve him.
Right.
And so that could be, and that would be my guess, is that he didn't have an acolyte or a person that he had been training because...
Well, and to be fair to Joshua, I guess they were doing a lot of warring at that point.
That's true.
It's hard to train somebody when you're going to war all the time. So.
Right. I mean, Moses managed it, but he was traveling.
Yeah.
He wasn't...
At war.
He did some conquering.
But not a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, they would do one, and then they would, like, travel for a few years.
And let's be fair, Joshua was kind of with him learning probably from the time they left Egypt on, because he was going up Mount Sinai with them. So, like, he was an acolyte of Moses very early on. From the
very beginning,
Right.
So, Joshua was already in old age when he... had to take over for Moses, and who would he have chosen at that point, to follow him up?
Right. So, I mean, he should have, but
sure,
obviously he didn't.
He didn't.
So, wah, wah, wah.
So, do you remember how we were... Oh, sorry, I'm changing the subject now a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, so do you remember how we were like, what? When there was the king who he chopped off the thumbs and toes.
Yeah.
Thumbs and big toes.
Yeah.
And so then our guys did the same thing to him.
Yeah.
That he had been doing.
Well, they said it in the wrong order, and it was like really weird the way they led into it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we found out afterwards, like, he had been doing that to everybody, so it made sense. It was
eye
a
for an
just
eye type
punishment.
shit. Whatever,
Right. So I didn't realize this. It was a custom among the people at the time who did not like military life to cut off their own thumbs.
What the fuck?
So that they wouldn't be called to be in the army. It was basically an early form of draft dodging.
Right, this is like the bone spurs and stuff?
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes even parents would cut off the thumbs of their children so that they would never be called into the army.
Damn.
So that's the significance of why he did that. Because without their big toes, they couldn't march. Without their thumbs, they couldn't fight.
Right.
So...
I mean, we still, people today still don't want their kids to go in the army and stuff. But, I mean, like, back then it had to be a lot more relevant. Like, I mean,
absolutely.
You were probably going to die.
Yeah.
Or at least be maimed or something.
Absolutely.
Like, it was not a good thing to be, I'm sure.
And I don't think it was necessarily out of love of their children either. I think it was, we need help to run this farm kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
Like, I'm
selfishness.
losing... Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well, and not only that, but to carry on their name, because that's very important to them.
Yes, that's true.
So.
That is true. So, so that was that. Another thing we had a question about was the City of Palms.
Yeah.
We were like, the fuck is that?
The City of Palms, was that the... Okay. You have to remind me a little bit, because I can't remember what that was exactly.
I don't remember where it was. I just remember we had a question about what the fuck is that.
Okay.
It was another name for the city of Jericho.
Oh, okay.
So it was just Jericho. Okay. City of Palms.
That's boring.
Yeah. But that answers that.
Right, yeah. I mean, they have... Yeah, all right.
Whatever.
Renaming.
Right,
sure.
right. Like, why can't you just call it what it is? My God.
Right.
Okay, I have one more thing, and it doesn't really answer our question, but it doesn't not answer our question either.
Okay, all right.
So remember when we were like, so an angel of the Lord, huh?
Yeah.
What is that?
Right.
And we were like, is it an angel? Is it a prophet? Is it God himself?
Right.
So most Christian scholars, and I say that because what I'm about to say, just take it with a grain of salt.
Okay. All right.
Most Christian scholars believe it is likely that it was God himself appearing in human form.
Huh.
But
that's weird.
Because of some of the phrasing, because there are other places in the Bible, like in the book of Timothy, which we obviously haven't got to yet. It says that God cannot be seen.
Right. And they even referred to that with Moses because, like, you cannot look upon me and stuff like that, right? I mean,
it's him in human form, which would
there's a distinction between I
his magic.
Why wouldn't he do that all the fucking time? Why wouldn't he come down and talk to them in human form all the time?
As I said, it doesn't answer our question, and it doesn't not answer our question.
All right.
It is what it is.
All right. So maybe sometimes God was human.
I think it's part of that trying to apply New Testament eyes to Old Testament stories.
I think it's part of that. Let's take all these crazy fucking stories and try to apply anything that makes any goddamn lick of sense to try to make it sound sensible, and it doesn't.
Another word for that is apologists.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Like, by the time you get done spinning it all, your mind is so fucking frayed from all the bullshit running through it at that point that you can't even see straight. So
right, because the truth of the matter is, nobody knows.
Right.
You know,
it's a fucking book written in the Bronze Age by people that had nothing to do with this shit, and they're they're telling stories that got told to them by people that got told to them by people that got told to them, and so on and so on and so forth. So
the likelihood that this happened at all is very highly to the negative.
Right, and I think that especially applies in the Old Testament, because the Old Testament was very much a
oral history
for such a long time.
And it was more based on collective societal remembrance for them as a people.
Well, and more than that, I mean, I think that even shows up in like where they steal stories from older gods and stuff like that, and they don't like they basically incorporate all these different gods into this book.
Sure.
And they make it one story now, and it just doesn't hold water after a while. Like, you're like, wait, this is over here. Wait, that's over there.
Sure.
What the fuck is this? Donkeys that speak? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
It's highly unlikely that the thing happened, and then beyond that, it's very impossible that it happened the way they said.
Right. Okay.
So that's what I got for you there.
Gotcha. All right.
So that is the end of that.
That is the end of that?
I don't think I hit all the questions we had.
Probably not.
But
I don't think we ever do.
No.
I mean, we kind of suck. Either that, or there's literally like no questions in an entire week.
Right.
One of the two. It's never an in between.
Exactly.
But hey, but at least one thing happened.
What's that?
We kind of maybe sorta, I think, finally have our sound fixed.
I think you might be right.
I had to give yesterday like a test run and see how it went, but I think we're good.
Okay.
I mean, more or less,
More or less.
We're never good.
Insofar as we are unprofessional schlubs.
Right, yeah, that. Yeah. All right, so that's pretty much all we got then?
Yep, so that's a Saturday for you.
That is, and tomorrow will be the
replay.
The replay, or as I like to call it, the recap or whatever.
It's not a recap.
Whatever.
It's a replay.
It is what it is, And
then Monday
we'll be starting with Judges chapter 6. All right, we will see you guys then.
Bye.
Bye.
Husband.
Yes, wife?
Remember how you told me we're on Patreon now?
Yeah, why?
Because we're starting something new for Patreon members only. Every couple of weeks, we'll cover something in the news, a current event, or something we feel strongly needs to be discussed. And only subscribers get to hear our discussion.
That's right. It's all for our Patreon members as a thank you for their support. Join now for as little as $2 a month to get all of our extra content. Go to patreon.com/sacrilegious discourse.
Do it now. Husband, it's the end.
It is indeed, wife.
Tell the people where they can contact us.
Well, they can get a hold of us via our email, which is sacrilegiousdiscourse@gmail.com. We have Twitter at sacrilegious_D.
For D's nuts.
Oh, why do you know? Why do you keep doing that? Ugh. All right, we have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, and a Pinterest page. But if you really want to get our attention, Twitter's where it's at.
Twitter is where you're at.
Yeah.
And they should also review, like, and subscribe, yeah?
Definitely. Apple Podcasts reviews help us out tremendously. And we also can use your support on Patreon, which is a great place to support us as well. That would be at patreon.com/sacrilegious discourse.
Don't forget to say thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Bye.